Hey guys, it's Awesomeness once again. Back at you with another random talking video that I just decided to make out of nowhere, just because I happened to be sitting in my car doing nothing. And I had a new topic. It's not a wrestling one this time. That's cool. Trust me, there's more wrestling things I could talk about. Last night's Dynamite episode. Today's like Thursday the 6th. Yeah. Very good. The October 5th episode of Dynamite of this year was very good. Anyway, that can be for another day. The topic that I wanted to talk about today is another one of my interests, of the many that I have. I've got some on my eye. I keep, of course, as soon as I start recording. I'm good. The topic that I wanted to talk about today was another interest of mine, and that is Star Wars. Yes, if you couldn't tell by the double chin, and I shaved it, but I do, the neck beard is invisible right now, but it's there. The overweight nerdy type? Yeah, I like Star Wars. It's about the only kind of sci-fi wizardy magic-y type thing that I like. I'm mostly into like realism. I like, wars and realistic media films, mostly. It's at least more realistic settings, but for whatever reason, Star Wars really appealed to me. Possibly because I started watching it when I was like really little, so maybe that's why. And I never did any of the other like really popular sci-fi. I didn't watch Star Trek. I didn't do Harry Potter. Didn't do Game of Thrones. Didn't do Percy Jackson. Didn't do any of that stuff. But for whatever reason, Star Wars really appealed to me, and I imagine it was probably, like I said, the young age when I started, watching Star Wars thing, but also the war aspect thing. It was, the sci-fi war aspect and the many, what's the word I'm looking for? The many similarities it had to real life warfare in terms of, a lot of the guns in the original trilogy are just like World War II guns that have been modified slightly to look more sci-fi like. And the themes around the Empire and the Rebellion kind of, are attributed kind of sort of like the Allies and the Axis from World War II, and anything like that, that really appeals to me, being a history major and such. But the Star Wars topic I wanted to talk about today was eras. There's technically three, if not four, eras in Star Wars. I'll go with four, even though I'm not sure how canon the four is. But there's like the Old Republic era, and then there's the Clone Wars era, the Galactic Civil War era, and the sequel trilogy era, whatever you want to call that. So I just bop my mirror hanging cards thing. I hope that's not bothersome here. I'll move my camera a little bit. There. So the topic regarding eras is an interesting one with Star Wars, because everybody has their favorite era, and everyone has their reasons for liking whatever era of Star Wars, whether you're into the stuff from the Galactic Civil War with the Empire and the Rebels, if you're into Clone Wars stuff with the Republic and Confederacy, or back in the Old Republic, maybe old Mandalorians or whatever. I'm saying a lot of Star Wars-y terms, so if you're not a Star Wars person, you'll get none of this. But I've been a Star Wars fan for like years and years and years now, so I know quite a bit, not everything, but a lot of the terminology regarding the different, you can do everything. Like, I tune out when people started going with their Game of Thrones lore, and I'm like, I don't understand. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about my favorite era and why I like it the best, and why I think it's better than pretty much all the other ones. Granted, I don't have much experience in the Old Republic era, so maybe if I go like play Knights of the Old Republic or something like that, maybe I'll start liking that era more. But I have not played that game and don't know a ton about that era as it stands right now, because popular media, at least for Star Wars, doesn't cover that a whole lot. But anyway, I digress. My favorite era of Star Wars is the Clone Wars era. The whole, giant Clone Wars, I think it took a span of like 4-ish years. Maybe 3. I think it might have been 3, close to 4 in the timeline. I always liked the Clone Wars the best out of all the eras, and here's why. I'll say the obligatory, like too long didn't watch statement, so you can click off right away since we're already at 6 minutes. The too long didn't watch version of events is why I like it the best. It's probably just because of childhood nostalgia. That's the era that, all the media for Star Wars was kind of focused around at the time when I was growing up, with the prequel movies and, the Clone Wars TV show and all that type of stuff, the games and the Lego sets and, everything. So to get that part out of the way, yes, probably most of this is because of, childhood nostalgia and good feelings about everything that goes on and all the characters and whatever else. But anyway, for the longer portion of the video, here's why I like the Clone Wars the best. It feels to me, point one, it feels to me like the Clone Wars is one of the better all-around eras. The story and the characters, it's the most fleshed out in terms of the overall, universe around everything, out of pretty much all the eras. Like, you get, when you go into Clone Wars content, I'm talking canonically Clone Wars content, the expanded universe that was destroyed by Disney did a lot of cool stuff, but I'm talking about what's canon right now in 2022. But when you look at like the canon storylines and the canon universe surrounding the Clone Wars era, it's probably the most expansive out of all of them, except maybe the Old Republic. And as it stands right now, I'm not sure how canon all of the Old Republic stuff is anymore. I don't know. I haven't kept up on what exactly is canon or not when it comes to the Old Republic stuff anymore. I don't know if Disney kept it or destroyed it all like they did all the other expanded universe stuff. Regardless, the canon Clone Wars stuff, when you go through the 3 movies and the entire Clone Wars show and part of the Bad Batch show they just did, which they're still doing, but it's kind of after the Clone Wars ends, but it's still technically in that little time frame. And they're also doing Tales of the Jedi soon, I think is the next thing, which has some Clone Wars stuff in it too. Regardless, I feel like the Clone Wars is the most fleshed out because, you get all of that canon content with the movies and when you go with 2 and 3 and then everything in between that the Clone Wars show did, which the Clone Wars show, if the Galactic Civil War era, the original trilogy movies, had something like the Clone Wars that just pieced all the movies together in the in-between times, even with different characters, just what was going on in the galaxy, that'd be great. I would love that. But they don't right now. They have some stuff in that time frame, but not a whole lot. Like I said, not as much as the Clone Wars stuff does. But to me, you get with such a massive, in-universe conflict as the Clone Wars was. It's just all the different planets, the different species that were introduced, the different battlefields that took place, all across the galaxy. you don't get that in a lot of the other medias. I mean, like, you know, obviously in the original trilogy and the sequel movies and everything like that too, you get you get, you know, multiple planets, and you get a look at some of the, you know, battles and what have you. But for Clone Wars, it just seemed, this is also especially due to the Clone Wars TV show, but in the time frame between with episode 2, the Clone Wars, and episode 3, and then the Bad Batch, that whole time frame is like completely covered. Not completely, but like really well covered compared to the others. Like, you get so many different introductions to so many different characters and so many different types of species and so many planets, so many outfits, you know, on both sides of the war, and the different factions and the politics behind it. It's just, bar none, the best out of everything in the canon Star Wars timeline right now, as it stands. And that's, you know, that's the first reason why I always get drawn back into the Clone Wars era of things, just because, you know, it's so expansive and you can explore every little detail of it, you know, where you'll run out of things to look at a lot faster if you're looking at original trilogy and sequel trilogy stuff, way faster than you will Clone Wars stuff. Second reason why I like the Clone Wars better, I just simply prefer the I don't want to say art style. I mean, technically it's art style, but the battle makeup, the war itself, and all of the vehicles and soldiers, and, you know, the different unit types, and the different battalions and stuff with their different, you know, colored markings and stuff for clones, and the different Confederacy factions that joined together and all had to, like, combine their resources to make a, you know, something to fight off the Republic with. The whole scenario there with that type of the warfare just is more to my tastes, I guess. There is something to be said about an underground rebel force trying to fight back an evil empire. You know, that's cool. And then there's kind of that thing was kind of copy pasted with the sequel trilogy. But I don't know, the Clone Wars just feels so unique in its, you know, especially with the sequel trilogy now, which a lot of things were just kind of copy pasted over. I'm talking like vehicles and heroes and the looks of characters and stuff. The Clone Wars are just so unique, and I like that a lot. The different, you know, droid types, there's so many of them. The different weaponry, the vehicles are so out there and different compared to the original trilogy stuff. And you can see, though, they did a really good job with the designs. You can see the progression. You kind of get towards the end of the Clone Wars, and you kind of start seeing the Republic start to build some of these vehicles and stuff, and warships and whatever that just kind of fits right in, and is like, oh, the Empire just took that over and expanded it after the whole collapse. That's just really cool to me. That's good writing to me. I mean, you can say what you want about the prequel movies. I understand. Like, you know, apart from 3, the first 2 prequel movies are kind of has its moments, but, you know, I understand. But like I said, you know, childhood nostalgia. I watched those movies a lot because that was what was, you know, out at the time, and that was the thing. But yeah, you know, when you look at all the you know, clone battalions, you know, their individual, you know, named troopers and stuff, just themselves can have their own stories. The Clone Wars did a good job of that, the TV show. And then even, you know, the story arc with the collapse of the Jedi is really interesting, because they kind of ended up being the bad guys in the end, depending on how you look at things. But, you know, and the different factions of the Confederacy crumbling apart under the, you know, the direction of Sith Lord Palpatine, who basically just used them for his end goal. I don't know. All of that just feels different and feels great to me in the grand scheme of things with the whole Star Wars universe. It always draws me back in, and the reason I brought this up is because I play a game on my computer called Empire at War. If you're a Star Wars fan, you may have heard of it. Empire at War is a fantastic real-time strategy game from like 2006 or something. And it's unbelievably good. And it's made that way. It's not because the original only did the original trilogy stuff. But the modding community for Empire at War is fantastic. It's like some of those dedicated modders you'll ever see, just completely changing the entire landscape of the original game to keep it alive, and it's just so good. But I started thinking about this topic because I kept getting drawn back into the Clone Wars era mods for Empire at War, and it's just and like it's basically everything that I just said. You know, the era is more intriguing, the vehicles and stuff are more interesting and unique, and the characters I enjoy a little bit more, you know. But that's basically the topic for today, explaining why I prefer the Clone Wars. And if you're watching, you can leave your thoughts in the comments section. I'd like to hear what everyone thinks, what everyone's favorite era is, and why. You know, it's not a serious thing. It's just I felt like talking about it because it's my channel and I can do what I want. So, quick review. This has come obligatory now. Voltage, one of my favorites. Very good. Nothing like a good Voltage sometimes. You know, you can bounce back and forth between a lot of different flavors. Voltage is up there with like the classic Dew of like the classics for me. Not like Voltage Code Red original is like the base of Mountain Dew. But regardless, that's my rant for today. That's not really a rant. I wasn't really angry. I was just saying. It's my TED Talk. We'll call it a TED Talk. It's my TED Talk for today. Thanks for stopping by. Catch you later.